front of me, they just finished the talk on spatial search for the quantum world, right? So, but I think most of you are like a physicists, right? So basically, you say, well, hey, dude, you guys talk about search, you talk about algorithm, what the heck is going on, right? So pretty much it's like, for CS people, we say, we have algorithms, right? And then here on the bottom, you guys have the physics. And you have the qubits, right? And then you have to do some like laser beams or whatsoever, manipulations, so on and so forth. So for CS people, we say we come up with an algorithm. And then we say we want to control your system, so we come up with this software, right? So software. So for instance, you may have IBM Qiskit, and maybe you have a Microsoft QShop, and maybe you have stuff like Rakiti, they have the Forest. So these are all those software that allows you to manipulate the underlying system. Of course, we know it's kind of like shaky at this moment. So what's going to happen is that you have an algorithm, and then let's say you play with a Qiskit and you implement it, and what's going to happen is that you have a quantum compiler. And then what does a quantum compiler do? It tries to do some optimization on the gates. Because you turn your code into the gates, but somehow there's another there because the gates, they have a precision issues, right? Precision issues. So basically, here's a little bit more like a physical part, and this is more like a CS people's part. And there are lots of things in between to be optimized. Right? So when you do the IBM Qiskit, it looks like, it's pretty nice, but they are just a simulation. They didn't, unless you say they have 3 modes, or they have a they predefined a noise model to let you play with. I think they have 3 types, and then the very last one they have is let you really run on the system, right? And sometimes, I should say most of the time, the result is not really good because among those layers there are so many things that can go wrong. But that's why we are doing research. We're trying to fix those problems. Right? So for me, a CS person knows very little about physics, and I only learned about the 4 quantum postulates. Then I jump in and say, okay, let's do quantum algorithms. Right? Okay, so today I'm going to talk about recently in the US, let's say, well, exactly what can a quantum machine do, right? So let's say, that's why they say, well, what's the quantum supremacy? What's the next, right? So people want to see, what can you give us in the following 10 years? I don't want to see you give me a very nice computation which never can be realized, right? They want to see something concrete. So today, my talk is pretty much talking about, okay, so my expertise is in quantum walk. So I say, well, let's see, can we do something about reduction? And can we do some lackadaisicalness technique for the quantum walkers? So basically, the idea for reduction is that your quantum system, your quantum computer, let's say 72 qubits, fine. But you look at those problems. Sometimes you say real life size problem. They are so huge, it cannot be implemented on the quantum machine. So what can you do? Can we do something about it? So maybe we can figure out is a way we can reduce the dimensionality of the problem that is given to you. Or if now let's say we talk about this quantum walk is optimal, but sometimes it's not optimal when it goes to the other direction. When I say the other direction is when it's like a special solution, the D is less than 2, then it's not optimal. Okay, so let me start my talk, and this is basically, I want you to know, we are on the same page that and where I'm coming from, right? Okay, so So maybe I just use a keyboard, you know. So. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is, the previous talk was pretty good, but now I'm going to give you a simple introduction. What are the existing quantum walk models out there, right? So you have continuous, which was presented previous. We talked about it, and then we also have a discrete quantum walker. These are two major players, and they are equivalent. Because Andrew Charles showed that the equivalence between those models. And then we'll talk about, well, what's going to happen when you have d-dimension, right? So is the quantum walk still good for the dimension gets larger or it gets smaller, right? And then after giving you the basic introduction, then I talk about some simple approximation like the QAOA, which is pretty hard these days. And then we'll talk about the reduction work I was working on. Okay, so first thing you say, what's a quantum walk? But classically, you know what's a random walk, right? So the drunken walk, right? So, I'm going to left, I'm going to the right. So that's a drunken walk. And then definitely, after a certain time step, if you do a little bit computation, definitely, the probability after time t, you ended at location x, which is pretty much just like this. It's like a binomial because you have a left and right, and it's equal to the time step. And then definitely you have a right minus left, and end up with a location x. So if you play a little bit with this, then let's tell you exactly what's going on. Classically, if you do a random walk, and that's where you end up at the end of the day. And quantumly, let's talk about is a coin-based quantum walk. Is you have a two register, which is the position, and here's a coin. So normally people say let us the coin as the regular adama. Right? So what's going to happen is that so here definitely you can think about left as a 0, right as a 1, right? So what's going to happen is the following, right? So what's going to happen is the following. So let's say I assume you're all familiar with the circuit model, right? So what's going to happen is, let's say here's a coin, and here's a space. How your stuff are walking on, then definitely here you have a first chunk here. Let's say this is a coin. At this point, let's say it's a harama, and here you have a identity. And then what's going to happen next is you have a shift operator. So what does shift operator do is look at this coin. So if you are the 1, then I move right. If you are the 0, I move left. So here's the second part talking about. So here, you have a coin operator acting on the space, and here's a coin space. Then X will decide, if here is 1, then you, let's say, +1. But if here is a 0, then you go -1. So move left and right. So with that in mind, so people do some simple simulation. What happened at the end of the day is that if this is the drunken walk classically, this is the distribution after 100 time steps. And this is a quantum walker based on the coin, and which is what it looks like this. So with that in mind, with this picture in mind, so let's say if something I'm looking for is further away, which would be a better way to use? Definitely you want this a quantum walker because you have a higher probability to reach someplace far away. So this is a simple simulation with a coin-based quantum walk. And they say, okay, so that's cool, but somehow this coin-based is one of those discrete ones. They also have this kind of Sagadi walk. So Sagadi walk is given an arbitrary transition matrix. Let's say it's not double stochastic, just a column-wise stochastic. Then you can construct a corresponding quantum walker. It's a WP, which is a two-step loop. So what does it look like, right? So what does it look like? It has the following structure. So this U is constructed as a swap operation times a 2 pi minus I. And what's your pi? Pi, it looks like, based on your state space, you have this psi x, and what's the psi x? So psi x is just like, you have, okay, so maybe I have a little too fast. So psi s is yeah. So size exactly what happened is that one step of the walk. So you can imagine this is like, okay, this here I am, and these are my neighbors, and these are the probability I go to my neighbors. So I can imagine this psi x just okay, I have give me a matrix. So let's say they give me the matrix like the following, the one we had earlier. So this is your state, and you have either I stay here or I go to the next guy. Right? And this guy says, okay, either with the probability I stay here or I go to the next guy. So as you can see, as a simple illustration from the previous matrix, you can see that psi x for position 1 is exactly just like this. Exactly just like this. Okay. And then, and definitely there are some other theorem properties and spectral theorem for that, but that's something that I'm not going to talk about today. And then you also have this continuous quantum walk. So it's very easy. It's pretty much just like e to the minus iht, as you can see in the, where is it? The next slide here. Yeah, so pretty much just e to the minus iht, and each h, the seek, is something that the presenter talked about this, right? So you have this target state, and you have this HA, which is your normal adjacency matrix. And you have this gamma is so-called a coupling factor, because the way you tune a coupling factor to guarantee the optimal performance of this walker. Right? So this is a continuous walk, pretty much just like e to the minus iht. Somehow your H is just not just your adjacency matrix with some slight modification. Okay, so let's say let's do this one. So let's do this. So here people run some simulations, say, well, what does it look like with the continuous, and what does it look like with the discrete? So obviously the behavior is very similar. Okay, so they talk about those models, and then what are the speed up? So finally you have this glue tree, and that's the only one people found out which have exponential speed up, right? So and some other things like search on graph, element distinctness is only quadratic speed up, square root of n, right? And definitely they talk about what's the connection between continuous and discrete. And people can say, well, you can do the laziness, right? So you just do the trottleization of this continuous time. So this is basically three types of model of continuous quantum walker, discrete have two types. You have point base, you have the Segedie base. Right? So this is the model. So basically, someone earlier was asking, well, given the arbitrary graph, what's the complexity, so on and so forth, what's optimal? So basically, as you can see, here probably like a 3 integer, 4 probably n minus, 5 probably Scott Harrison. Right? There were some paper talking about on the spatial search, what's the optimal. So as you can see, they all reach square root of n. This is optimal. That's a global square root of n, right? So what's going on is that when d is less than 2, equal to 2 or 1, that region is still gray. People don't know how does a walker perform over there, right? So it is not as optimal as we like them to be. So okay, so what's going on? Well, what can we do with the 2 or 1? So people come up with this lackadaisical walk. Is that in addition to the earlier adjacency matrix, you also have a cell loop, and you add a cell loop into the Hamiltonian. Turned out the performance is better. It doesn't make sense, right? So you're being lazy. I'm not going anywhere. But it turned out performance is better than those guys. And this is some interesting things people try to see. Why is that going on? So here's a simple model. Let's say, well, if you have this lackadaisical quantum walk, and you have this square root of L, that's the probability, the way of staying where you are. That plays a crucial factor. And as it turned out, people got the result run through the simulation. There's no theoretical sound proof about this value. So that could be something people can do that try to prove this. through the mathematical proof, because the result we get the value for the weight is 401 divided by n, and maybe 4 divided by n. That's all simulation result. That's the best thing they can find through simulation. So if you are interested, this could be one of the areas I can look into. Say, how do I determine this L properly for my model? So I can say, well, the complexity has something to do with the optimal L I can get. Okay, so basically, I just talked to you about the quantum world models, and then how do we do the lower dimension. People come out with a lackadaisical with a cell loop, but the problem is, what's this L? What's this weight? Well, people get it from simulation, but they don't have a sound proof. So that would be something that people can work on. Okay, so now the next thing is a near term. Okay, so I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the blower, right? So this is what it looks like. Right? So you have this, H3 and so on and so forth. But somehow, are you guys familiar with the QAOA? No. Okay, so it's a approximation quantum algorithm. It tries to get the answer very quickly, approximately. The reason is that you want to have a short circuit, because you have a long circuit, you definitely harder to do, more coherence, so on and so forth. So if it's a short circuit like a VQE, you have a short circuit, and try to get maybe the answer doesn't have to be exactly the same, but somehow it's good enough, and they're happy with it. And there's some argument these days, like maybe in May, like I think it's the middle of May, I think the guy from Microsoft research, he pointed out for some particular search problem, like a Max3 link 2, which is like an Ising model, but Ising model, you don't have a pair to compute the minimal of the sum, right? But he came up with a model like, it's maybe a part of 3 sites, and it turned out for his work is not going to defeat classical approximation. And people started to put question mark. But somehow later, like Isaac Chuang come out with a state transfer problem. He claimed that if you fix some particular parameter in the QAOA, as it turned out, that search problem is exactly like a quantum world. So definitely there's a connection from QAOA to quantum world, and there's some circuitry that the people done maybe 2 years ago showing that it's almost optimal of the prober in the eyes of QAOA, but the connection inside still need to be explored. And okay, so maybe I should skip this, just something that's ongoing and there's no answer yet. So now maybe talk about the next thing. Okay, so I'll make it very short on time. So maybe I should just skip the following, right? So given a graph, a complete graph, I definitely can search. I'm sure, I think many people have seen this, and you can do some reduction technique to reduce this from this 7 by 7 into 2 by 2, and then you do a little bit perturbation theory onto the given reduction, reduce the 2 by 2 into a different basis. So and definitely people also say, well, I can use the same technique to work on the bipartite graph and turn into a 3 by 3. So what does this mean? Here is for example of size 7. But no one says it has to be 7. It can be 1 million by 1 million, which is super huge, but you can reduce it to a 3 by 3. It still capture the dynamics. So what does that mean exactly? So you can reduce a given complex graph. You can reduce it to much smaller dimension. This is a work done, I think, by the OMA, so on and so forth. They've done this before. So what I'm saying is that we extend a little bit. We say it doesn't just have to be a complete graph, doesn't have to be bipartite, doesn't have to be star. You can have a p-partite graph. It is still reducible. And here is a technique. That's what's happened is that if you give me a graph, let's say it's n by n, I don't know how big it is. N could be super large. Then I come up with the use those algorithm to perform the reduction to see if it's reducible. So definitely, currently we do by hand, so we're on the 3x3, and then when given the 3x3, then you can run this continuous quantum walk with the definition we talked about. Then you play a little bit with the perturbation theory, so on and so forth. Then you decide it's gamma, the coupling factor I mentioned earlier, which is a key important factor for keeping the continuous walk to be optimal. Then at the end of the day, you say, well, how do I know it's optimal? Then definitely there's some proof. But I'm gonna skip here. So basically, what we did is we standardized this procedure doing the Lanzhou's algorithm, and you do this how to decide the gamma factor efficiently. Then we also prove that with the right gamma chosen, we guarantee our walker remain optimal. Right? So here is a simple, a reduction. Given you have an n by n, then you reduce to the say 3x3, and then you can do a little bit more. So we're given a 3x3, then you can do this continuous walk Hamiltonian, and then you do a little bit writing this in the perturbation theory. You find out the major component and the sub-major component, and you write the matrix in turned out this original HC in the basis of the H0. So as doing some computations, then we'll figure out how to derive the gamma factor properly. And once we derive the gamma factor properly, then how do we know this gamma factor is going to help us figure out this quantum walker is optimal? So basically, what happened is some proof here, So, and then there's some more work that given a complete graph, as we shown earlier, it's turned into a 2x2, and now we can randomly remove the earlier the person's randomly adding edges. I'm randomly remove edges. So it turned out maybe some point they meet together, but the work done by the Omar, they only extend to the complete graph, but we do on the bipartite graph, we also randomly remove, and we also show that it's reducible, and using the mechanism that flow chart will show you, we still show that the reduced graph of the bipartite with K8 remove, it is still can be searched optimally, right? So that's the work we've done. And yeah, here's pretty much just the references. Okay. Yeah, I'm done.
So then Chen Fu Chiang is pretty severe of the quantum walk. Any questions?
So can you repeat again what your reduction do?
Okay, so what does it do? Okay, so this is the scheme, right? So you're given an n by n. Okay. N by n adjacency matrix. Okay. So in your size, given a graph, definitely you can generate corresponding adjacency matrix. Then given the adjacency matrix, then we run this well-known algorithm called Lanzhou's reduction onto the basis. So this is a well-known algorithm. You can look it on Wikipedia. Okay.
What does the algorithm do?
So what does it do is I try to eliminate. It's pretty much like a Gram-Schmidt decomposition. Gram-Schmidt, the basis, try to reduce those bases that you don't really need, the basis vector. So maybe some duplicates, right? So given an n by n, maybe based on the pattern of the graph, some of the states can be eliminated.
You mean some of the can be eliminated?
No. What I mean is,
adjacency matrix, right?
Okay, this is adjacency matrix. So now the edge being removed, it's more like, I think the best way to visualize it is like this. Like this. So this, they give you a adjacency matrix like this, right? Given this is a bipartite graph. So you maybe have a 7, for this particular example, you have a 7 by 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you run those, you can do it into a 3x3. And this 3x3 still captures. Imagine this guy shrink. This, excluding the red, shrink. If you look at the Fali's paper, the glue tree is like it's like a two binary tree glued together, but each level that collapses into one. So its glue tree look like walking one line on a line. So it's the same thing here. You have the structure that use the lassos, and then you can reduce that into 3x3. Then you say, oh, how do I know? That's a good question. That's why we identify classes of graphs, right? So they identify complete graph and identify bipartite and identify n-partite, but it's only reduced to a very small size. So what does that mean? That means my options are limited. So next step, what you can do is you can write the software to do so.
Wait, that sounds like, does the reduction need to know where the marked item is?
Does the reduction need to know where the mark element is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it not defeat the purpose of you try to find the marked item?
Okay, that's a good question. So you said if you don't know the purpose is that you don't know the mark element, and why do we do this? Right? Why do we do this? So if you already know the mark element, then why do you even bother to reduce it?
Yeah.
That's a very good question. And guess what? I don't have a good answer for it. So, okay, so I think this technique, you say, well, if I already know the answer is, then I think it's pretty much, I think the technique here is pretty much try to do the reduction, I suppose. But you say, well, if in the graph I already know, then what does that mean? But that comes with layer. What do you mean? When you look at the graph, you know what it is, and what do you mean in reality what it is when you run the implementation? I give you a graph, I need to say this particular guy is the solution, but does it correspond to, you know exactly what it is in the search? You don't, right? So that's why, I give you a graph, you can do the reduction. The reduction pretty much just try to reduce the dimensions such that the reduced graph keep the dynamics, right? The dynamics, and you can throw it into the system to be implemented. So pretty much it's like short-handed. Like if I tell you, hey, I give you a huge database and so on and so forth, but do you really know where it is in the system? You don't just say, well, it looks like it's the connection. What does it mean? So I think that's a similar analogy.
Any other question? Okay, so let's thank